We are among the land of the living. Guess what day it is? I don't know. It's hump day.
It's
That's
hump
right.
day.
Yes. Joe Rayo and Joe Chaffee on the Joe and Joe. What? That's a red shirt, Joe. That is
I know.
really red.
I know.
Very bright. You must be using a good laundry detergent.
Well, here we
Maybe.
are again with a chance for each of our couples to win up to $10,000. And if any of them see to seek a void, we'll get an extra $100.
Right.
Mm. So what's on your mind today besides Omar and Nana and or is it Nana?
Nana.
Nana?
I had somebody on Facebook message me because they that's of course that is a term that kids call their grandmothers sometimes, Nana. So
Right. Well, I
so
call my grandmother Nanny, but we don't have a nanny. We have a Nana.
no, mine was grandma or
Yeah.
uh, nonna for
In
Italian.
fact, when I was growing up, I had two nannies. I had my father's mother was Nanny who lived on 116th Street, so I called her Nanny 116. And then
Yeah.
there was Nanny who lived up in the Bronx, so I called her Nanny in the Bronx.
It's just so funny because you had Nanny 116th. I had my two grandmothers. My one grandmother was um, uh, Grandma 119th Street
Right,
in Manhattan. So she was 3 blocks away
right.
from yours, and my other one and she was on 119th and Second. Okay,
Okay,
and my other grandmother was on 100 and actually they both lived between 119th and 120th.
okay,
My other grandmother was between 119th and 120th on First
right,
Avenue.
right.
So that was yeah. So it was
Somewhere
grandma.
near the somewhere near the Rexall drugstore,
Yes.
and
Oh
across the
yeah.
street from Sloan's.
Across from Sloan's, and then of course down the block was Math Brothers,
Okay,
the
Math
super
Brothers. That's
the
right.
the local supermarket. We used to go
The
there.
big white walled supermarket. Very big for that time. It was
Oh, it
like
was huge.
Sloan's was a little thing right next to the Esso station.
Right.
And down the block toward like 117th Street, 118 was Math Brothers, which took up a whole block.
Right, and then
Um,
there was the First National City Bank on 116th and First, and it
right.
was an old building because it had like these iron bars that almost looked like a jail. It was so cool to go in there,
Yeah.
and across the street was Santino's. I think it was called Santino's, the big liquor store on the corner.
Right.
And they used to go down there and buy they would buy the gallon jugs of Gallo wine and
Right.
walk down the street with them.
Yes, I'm sure dear old dad, not your dad, my dad, dear old dad probably spent a goodly amount of his time down there, which is probably the reason why dear old dad and dear old mom
Yeah.
split in the mid 60s.
Did Just one quick question because then we got to get to weather. Um, did you get your bleach delivered?
My what?
Bleach. They used to deliver bleach for wash in these giant 3 gallon bottles. They're impossible to lift. You'd have to, the women in those days had arms like Gorgeous George, and they used to be, you know, used to weight lift these bottles. But we used to have the bleach delivered once a
I
week.
don't I
Yeah,
don't remember that.
yeah.
I I
Well,
have
they
no.
always, it wouldn't be a good thing to think it was something to drink, but I guess it was just the way they used to wash clothes because they used to wash a lot of clothes at home in the bathtub.
Right.
Because it was really luxury to have a washing machine and you couldn't afford to go to the laundromat. So you'd wash everything by hand at home and then you'd hang it out on the clothesline out behind the fire escape. I used to go out on the fire escape and go to the woman next door. She would hang out like her dirty rags, and I would take the rags off the clothesline and throw them down into the back lot, and then run back in and hide. It's a wonder I wasn't. It's a wonder I didn't. Having been watching Superman and thinking that I could fly. It's a wonder that I didn't try to jump
It
off
is
one of those
amazing,
things.
isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of kids back in those days used to ask mom for the red towel to wear around their neck, and
Yeah. Exactly.
like little Ricky in the 1955 I Love Lucy.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. So look, we better get started here. Busy night. Well, somewhat busy now because there's some severe weather acting up in places not too far away from us, but definitely we're going to talk about that. And I don't know if you caught this. It was my website was down this morning, so I couldn't really update the weather until early this afternoon. So I, of course, mentioned about the fact that the severe weather risks for today and severe weather risks for tomorrow. And of course, the minute I posted it, SPC came out with a new forecast and added not only for tomorrow an enhanced risk, Joe, in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore
Right,
area, but I don't know if
right.
you saw it. It's a 10%
10%.
tornado risk. 10%. That's a big
Yeah,
number.
that is big. That they are expecting some nasty weather down in the DC area tomorrow, if that pans out. And they even talking about how the area of severe weather, the uncertainty for right here in the lower Hudson Valley. And that is something that they're going to have to watch during the course of the day tomorrow. So uh, we'll see how this all pans out. We've got one cold front approaching though right now, and that could set off a few locally strong boomers this evening for parts of
Yeah,
our view.
I think the big question, never really got out of the marine layer today. The sun came out for about 10 minutes. So I still have a lot of clouds here, and we never really did warm up like they did in South Jersey and Point South. But I think tomorrow's extent of severe weather is really going to depend on how much daytime heating we get. If we break out bright and sunny and start pumping temperatures well up into the 80s with dew points in the
Oh,
low 70s, then look out tomorrow evening because it's going to fire up, and then we'll probably have a few, maybe we might wind up with a severe thunderstorm watch of some kind. In the meantime, Joe, just to show everybody, we do have tonight, we do have a severe thunderstorm watch. It actually went up about 20 or so minutes ago. This severe thunderstorm watch came out at 6:45 p.m. It's effective till midnight tonight, and it covers south central and southeastern Pennsylvania, a few counties in southern New Jersey, much of Delaware, all eastern and central Maryland down to northeast Virginia. So we've got the Washington D.C., Baltimore area in this. Philadelphia is just kind of right on the edge, and the radar is actually rather busy, or starting to get a bit busy, looking at these storms that are firing up in central PA, and there's a small line that's forming down into western Maryland and northern Virginia, and that's moving to the east. So I think this, and then there's some storms that actually go up further north than that into central PA, on up near Williamsport or just south of Williamsport. That's moving along as well. So it'll be interesting to see how long this line holds up as it moves to the east.
right. I'm sorry, Joe. I was reading some of the comments on on the chat board, and seemed like everybody was talking more about horses. Like
Oh,
because of the
jeez.
race this weekend.
With the Kentucky Derby, it's a
Yeah.
fast and firm track over there. So we'll do the weather stuff for the Derby in a minute. Why don't we stay with the Storm Prediction Center? So we've got the marginal risk of severe weather for this evening, obviously, and it kind of cuts off right just west of New York City and just along the New Jersey coast. Again, we're kind of fighting this marine layer where we are tonight. The marginal risk is mostly inland, but we'll take a look at tomorrow's risk area and look at the upper air with this to see why we have enhanced risk in northeastern Virginia, much of Maryland, central and eastern Maryland, all of Delaware, kind of even covers a small sliver of southern New Jersey. They didn't change the northern extent of the slight risk, which is just to south of New York City, with marginal risk just to the north of that. I wonder, Joe, are we going to see this maybe the slight risk kind of pushed up tomorrow? Again, I think it's going to be dependent on how much daytime heating we get.
Well, that's exactly what the Storm Prediction Center was talking about today, about what may happen for tomorrow. They said there are some uncertainties. Um, right now, you mentioned that you're still waiting to break out of the marine layer from the latest surface analysis. They have the warm front now past you. We're kind of right now in the wedge of rather warm, well, not maybe necessarily warm, but rather muggy, humid air with dew points at or above 70 and waiting for the cold front to arrive. And then there's going to be that second cold front that's going to clear everything out in time for the weekend. That'll be for later tomorrow and into tomorrow night. So we've got two shots coming over the next 24 hours for potential strong to possibly severe convection.
So I'm going to bring up. I brought up the dew point map for 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, where the looks like the 70-degree dew points, and the reason why the enhanced risk area is where it is if you look at what the dew points are doing here, you kind of run the 70 dew points. Well, let's get this. Let's do it that way. So here we go. So I mean, here's your, basically where the 70 plus dew points are. Okay, and then you look down in southern New Jersey and down into northern Virginia, which is where you have your enhanced risk. The dew points down there are all just, they're hovering around 75. I mean, that's pretty saturated for
Yep.
any, at any time. I mean, that's really saturated air. So you've got that ingredient. And now, if we look at the temperature for 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and I'll bring those up, and you can see that the temperatures are all going to be in the mid to upper 80s. So you're talking about a high relative, temperatures uh, is 87, 88 with a dew point of 75. I mean, that's hideous. That's hideous. And I mean, we could certainly make it up into the low 80s with dew points near 70. Here, too, it's going to be very uncomfortable. So you throw into the equation what the upper air is going to look like for tomorrow. So why don't we, we'll take a look at this. And I'll go tight northeast here. Somebody this morning left a message on one of the videos saying that, um, I should, because when I do weather in five, I try to keep that weather in five video at 5 minutes or less, which I always fail at. I wind up going 6 or 7 minutes. But he wanted me to explain everything on there, and I just pretty much said that we do it on the nighttime show because we got far more time to do it than being able to do it on a 5 minute weathercast. But look at the upper air. Just back it up. We have a rather deep trough that is swinging across the Great Lakes in southern Canada. And you'll notice here there's a short wave that is embedded in that trough. And that is, if you look where these jet streaks are in the yellow and brown, I mean, there's a shortwave trough that's embedded in the stronger trough that's up to the north. And as that moves along, you are seeing tomorrow evening, that short wave is right on the coast, or just almost to the coast, right about here. And these brown spots, and we're looking at 18,000 feet, these are basically jet streaks or jet maximums, where you get these winds at 45, 50, 60 knots or higher, creating a tremendous amount of wind shear. And I think this is what the SPC folks are looking at here with this strong trough and all this wind shear that's showing up, particularly down in this area where you have the enhanced risk. They also talked about the Cape values in that region, Joe, getting up to about 2,500 in the discussion, which is fairly high.
Right.
So, so
In fact, I checked our Cape values, or at least New York City's Cape values, off of the plumes a little while ago, and ours are not quite as high. Ours are going to be around 1,000, which is nothing to sneeze at. But if you were talking about enhanced or potential tornadic activity, you want those capes to be up at like 2,500, which is what you just mentioned down near Washington, Baltimore.
yeah, and if you look at the 10,000 foot level, which I think is probably a better level to look at, you'll notice these jet streaks are far, far more active at this level of the atmosphere with that embedded shortwave. You've got some jet maximums here of 50 knots or higher at the 10,000 foot level. So it all spells trouble when you see strong winds like that at those levels. You are opening up the possibility of rotation if you get one of these stronger thunderstorms to develop. So I think SPC has got the right idea here with regards to what's happening in the upper atmosphere. Sometimes this stuff looks like this the day before, and then for one reason or another, it doesn't come together. I just want to kind of put that out there. It would seem to me, because we had that happen last week when they had that enhanced area in New Jersey, and we had storms to the north of that, storms to the south of it, and nothing happened inside the enhanced area. But I think, Joe, looking at what's going on tomorrow, especially at the lower part of the atmosphere, it's hard for me to argue against upper 80s and temperatures, dew points in the mid 70s. I mean, that's a really, really solid soaked atmosphere. And you get with instability with this trough coming through. It's hard for me to imagine that we're not going to see some thunderstorms of magnitude late tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow night.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be very tricky, especially in the fact that we really don't know just how much in the way of sunshine we're going to see tomorrow. And Joe, you're absolutely right. If we do see, a bit of sunshine tomorrow, warming things up more than what we're thinking of now, we could very easily be. I'm not going to say in that 10% area for tornadoes, but we could very easily see the situation upped in terms of severe weather for tomorrow locally.
In fact, I want to just go back to SPC's page. I just want to show everybody here. So here's the tornado risk, and 5% is actually, Joe. They got 5% up to just south of Route 78 in New Jersey, and the southern portions of Pennsylvania. So virtually the entire 2/3 of New Jersey at a 5% rate risk, even up into the marginal risk, they have a 2% risk of a tornado. And then you see that small area of 10%, which covers, by the way, Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. So certainly I think it's wise that we're going to wind up paying attention to this. And I just kind of switched it over to the wind for destructive winds. And we're looking at, God, I can't even read that number. Is that 30? Yeah, that's 30% in the enhanced area, 15% in the slight, and 5% probability for the entire area with regards to hail. There's no other severe weather risks going on for tomorrow and for tonight. Because we don't want to forget the rest of the country, we see that severe marginal risk that runs kind of snakes down through Kentucky and Tennessee into eastern Arkansas, northwestern Mississippi, a small portion of northeastern Louisiana, small portion there in South Texas, and a marginal risk up into the Dakotas. So day 2, as we said, is for tomorrow. Day 3, which takes us to Friday. There's no severe weather being indicated for Friday, just some general thunderstorm risk in parts of the mid-Atlantic down to Florida and west of Texas, and the rest of the country is in pretty good shape. And we've got no weather issues for the weekend. I think, starting from Friday, as things improve and dew points start to fall, I think we're going to have a beautiful Saturday, a beautiful Sunday, and I think we should hold on for most of Monday. I think we might be able to pull it off and have no shower or storms until after Monday evening goes by.
And in fact, Joe, I don't know what you're thinking, but as far as what I'm thinking, I think we could, after we get past this potential shower or even severe weather threat tomorrow evening, we may not see a drop of rain here after that, all the way through the weekend and all the way on through the middle of next week.
Well, the next trough drops pretty far to the left. It's hard if the trough is too far left. You're kind of left. You're sort of sitting here waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. So yeah, I think we may have minimal activity to worry about until later next week. At least that's the way it's shaping up. Meanwhile, tonight on the radar, I just want to show you folks, we've got some scattered heavy cells in parts of Kentucky and Tennessee. Also, a bit of a line crossing south central Virginia. This is, by the way, as of 7:18 Eastern time. So if you're watching this on a replay, make sure you get your latest local weather information by going to weather.gov to your local National Weather Service forecast office. And we've got some showers and a few storms, Missouri down into parts of Arkansas, western Oklahoma, parts of northwest Texas, some shower activity in East Texas, so all of it kind of swinging up to the northeast and ahead of a frontal boundary. And you've got showers that are up in Oklahoma kind of dropping down to the southeast. The rest of the country, pretty quiet, a little bit of stuff going on along the North Dakota-Canada border there with some showers. And we're just about set. I've got the 21Z. Let's look at this. Was this morning. And by the way, I know this. You looked like you got a fair amount of rain from that stuff that developed early this morning.
Yeah, the rain came down pretty hard, and I wish I could tell you exactly how much we had, but the rain gauge once again is out. I'm probably going to get a completely new weather station to replace the one we have outside because it's been working now only spasmodically, and especially
Ah,
with rain amounts. But yeah, it was coming out at a pretty good clip, especially since I had to take the car in, my wife's car in this morning to get an oil change. And as I was exiting out of the car and into the sales office area at the dealership, it was like a sudden burst of rain that came down, and it came down pretty good and pretty hard. So yeah, I was a little surprised at that. It was certainly not spotty rain, or maybe it was spotty in the intensity, but that pretty well petered out by midday, and then through the remainder of the afternoon, it was just humid, maybe a spot or two of drizzle, but more dry than anything else.
and you're right, Joe. Just kind of looking at that 21Z map now, the warm front has really, I mean, according to the way they have it analyzed, they have it through me. But I'm telling you here, still dealing with that ocean wind and a lot of low clouds. There's even some of the stations are reporting some patchy fog. But the warm sector is definitely setting up for tomorrow, and I think that really is key. A weak weather front to the west, a stronger weather front. It's the one that's back through Michigan, through Chicago. The air behind that, you're looking at temperatures in the 60s and 70s and dew points down in the 40s. So that's the drier air that we're waiting for that is coming down for the weekend. 7-day rainfall amounts from WPC. And this goes to what you said with respect to rainfall here. This is a 7-day forecast that takes us to next Thursday. Now, I think what you're seeing in southeastern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, and over the Washington D.C. Baltimore area pretty much reflects what's going to be happening tomorrow and whatever happens tonight. And they're generating anywhere between an inch and a half and 2.5 inches of rain in that region. But if you X that out and you go to areas to the northeast and to the southwest, for the next 7 days, we're talking about rainfall amounts, Joe, that are a quarter of an inch or less. So it is going to be mostly dry, and where the heavy rains are, from Texas northward through Oklahoma, Kansas, northeastward to the Great Lakes. If you're going to have a deep trough that's going to park itself somewhere like this, then your heavy rain is going to go in this direction before it goes in that direction. It's going to
Right.
go northeast, northeast before it moves east. You have to wait for the trough to bodily swing eastward. And I think you can make a case for the trough actually weakening as it moves eastward. So who knows how much is going to be left by the time it gets here.
Yeah, it's going to be, and there are places before this tandem of weather fronts, the one that we're looking at for later tonight, the one that we're looking at for later tomorrow. There's some localized spots that could pick up in excess of an inch of rain, maybe more. It's all going to be dependent upon the amount of convection. But again, after we go through all of this, I think sometime late tomorrow night, right on through the middle of next week, it's going to be dry here, and we certainly could use a bit of that because, as we pointed out, I pointed out a couple of days ago, Joe, July and August well above normal in terms of precipitation after a relatively dry June. It'd be nice to see things trending back to a drier environment here in the coming days ahead.
Works for me. All right, so I got the upper air up. So again, our weather's been all of this has really been about that the northern part of the jet stream, the jet part of the jet stream pattern, the upper air winds that have been sitting in Canada to just south of the U.S. border. It's been this game pretty much all summer long. You have this narrow east-west ridge in the Atlantic that extends actually out to the upper high that's in California. You got an upper high this sitting off the Florida and Georgia coast. You got another upper high way out into the Atlantic. So there's a couple of things that this impacts. For one thing, with respect to the tropical waves, this very strong east-west ridge is the reason why we're having Nana move to the west the way it is. Actually, I have that drawn a little bit too far south, but you get the idea. It can't break through that ridge. There's no weakness here. There's a little bit of a weakness back through West Texas, but that weakness is too far away to have any material impact on the tropical storm. So that's going to go into Belize and then make its way westward probably comes out on the Pacific side. The models seem to want to dissipate it even after it comes out over the water. So I'm not really going to get too worked up about what happens on the Pacific side. Now, this first shortwave that we have now, this is the one for tonight. This is the one that's coming for tomorrow and swinging around eastward. So that's going to be your severe weather producer. And actually, Joe, the trough itself, looking at this, hold on, I just want to erase this for a second. But looking at right in here, this actually gets amplified a bit during the afternoon tomorrow. That's a pretty decent shortwave that's swinging around embedded inside that whole trough. Again, this lends support. The upper air certainly lends support to the notion that there's going to be some sort of a severe weather outbreak tomorrow. And then the trough just kind of lifts out. The westerlies come down, and our air this weekend, as we been noting, comes out of Canada. And now this time of year, that air actually is reasonable. It's cool, it's dry, and that's going to be with us for Saturday and for Sunday. And even though the trough does eventually lift out, there's actually another shortwave trough that drops down for early next week. And here it is. And you see how far west it goes. This is way to the west. So this lends the argument, Joe, as you said, that after Monday, we'll get this front to approach. It won't be able to get through because you got this big upper high that's going to be building east of Nova Scotia. Your trough is out at around 95 west. We're going to be sitting in no man's land for about 2 or 3 days.
And this is the pattern, Joe, that you've been talking about for the last week or two, that you've been concerned that if we had some kind of a tropical system lurking, let's say down in the Bahamas or the Caribbean, that would be the perfect setup to bring that right up along the eastern seaboard between the trough to the west and the big high to the east. But thankfully,
be very careful.
Am I about to say something that maybe I will
no? Well, there's nothing there pending, but there are things out there, and I would be I would just be careful about looking at the models and taking them those surface maps literally and thinking that okay, doesn't show anything, therefore there isn't going to be anything there because. Most of this season, we've had many of these storms have been storms that the models have not really done very much with. They just, the tropical waves have been wanting to spin up, and I want to go look at the tropics because there are a couple of things that caught my eye today. But this kind of flow, folks, is what we've been talking about here with a deep trough like this, assuming that that's correct. And the high that's offshore creates an alleyway, a south-southwest flow along the eastern seaboard. So if there's anything that's out here, it's going to want to just go right into that weakness and make the turn around the backside of the high. So that really becomes the big question: is there going to be any kind of tropical system? And we're talking about maybe for the latter part of next week. So we've got a lot of time here, obviously. That trough, by the way, Joe. Even into Thursday and Friday, it takes a long time for it to get out of the way. It's still, if the GFS is correct, there's troughing that hangs behind. This really looks like, to an extent, it looks like what we had with Faye. It looks like what we had with Isaias. So, it's kind of a three-peat here as far as the upper air is concerned.
Not with a tropical cyclone, though.
Well, that's the big question here is that, we're talking 9 days from this is the second, so we're talking about 8 to 10 days from now. But I want to look at the tropics because there are a couple of things that caught my eye that I think are important. This is, by the way, I just put Nana up, the latest satellite loop. Actually, it isn't quite the latest one. It needs to update, so we'll let that freshen up. I want to go to the Atlantic satellite and point out a couple of things. So give me one moment here to bring it up. We'll go to the tropical Atlantic and we'll bring up that particular loop. And there we go.
By the way, Latex Dreams,
Tim
commenting on the chat board. Rayo, you need voice lessons louder. Am I not coming through? Am I too low for some of you? I guess.
I don't know. Your levels. Hold on. Your levels look okay to me. Talk to me.
Hello, one, two,
Yeah.
three, four.
I mean, I haven't
Yeah.
touched your levels. Your levels are fine.
Okay. All right.
All right. I'll bring. I could bring it up a little bit, but
Oh, maybe it's not you, or maybe it's Latex Dreams. We'll see.
it could very well be. I don't know. All right. So take a look at this satellite loop out in the Atlantic, Joe. There's a couple of things happening. First off, we actually have this little system right here. There's a low that has developed there. We also have a strong tropical wave that has just moved off the African coast, and that's here. These two systems, look, they're fairly close together. This lead system's not really moving very much, and of course, out to the left you have the area, and there's Nana that is approaching Belize at the moment. On the northern part of this picture, you could see what's left of Omar, and Omar has just gotten completely sheared apart. There's a low-level center that's completely exposed, and you know that because when you go to the from the visible during the daytime and it goes to the infrared, you can't even see it because it's just a swirl
Right.
of low clouds. So
Right.
that's done. That got the name that got a name out of the way. It was a minimal tropical storm. But we do have a busy tropical Atlantic, and I want to take a look. I want to go back now to the GFS, um, and the European also was kind of showing this. But let me just bring the GFS surface up, and we could take a look at that with respect to whatever troughing there is. So let's roll it back. Now, I would just sort of pay attention to the fact that the GFS on the surface anyway has got these lows that come out from the tropics, and by late next week, Joe, they do have something of a closed system north of Puerto Rico, right in here. So your frontal boundary at this point is right along the east coast. So it does have something there. Now, as we go through time, it kind of gets lost. But I would just remind everybody that when we had Isaias in the developing stages on the models going out 7, 8, 9 days out, it did the same thing. It just lost it, and we know that was not the case. But if the frontal boundary, if you follow the area of moisture along, it does get captured off the southeast coast and pulled upward. So look, the bottom line is there's no tropical system until there is one. So we're speaking here obviously in theory, but I would just want to be cautious with the trough. If we wind up with as deep a trough to our west for much of next week, I think we should just be a little cautious and pay a little extra attention to the tropics, because this is not the time where we're going to want to see something. Not that there ever is a time you want to see something, but with the way the highs are set up in the Atlantic, if it doesn't get caught in any kind of weakness in these tropical waves that are out there, I just want to be a little careful.
Well, the we've been talking about how everything has been moving. It's been a very progressive pattern, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of next week, we have this trough that suddenly digs sharply southward, and that slows everything up. And it's gonna be a feature that's going to be maintained, as you mentioned, through the middle and latter part of next week. And it's during that time frame. I agree with you that we would have to hope that if you don't want to see anything tropical, you want to hope that there isn't going to be anything tropical, because any interaction with that long range trough and that ridge to the east could certainly open the door and set the stage for something, maybe later next week, or not this weekend but the following weekend.
And
So
by the way, the fact that you mentioned that everything is so progressive, it kind of argues that maybe the GFS is out to lunch with this idea of this deep trough dropping the way it does, because if everything is progressive from west to east, you really should not have anything dropping in like this. But
right.
and that's what the European argues. The European argues that the trough in Canada just kind of moves along and never really drops a trough the way the GFS does. And I'm just kind of running through here on the long range. After that goes by, regardless, you do have that northern part of the jet stream strengthens again, and there's more short waves that come through around mid-month, and then another one behind it. So we go back to this pattern of cold fronts coming along every couple of days. But if we'll pull up the European just by comparison. Um, you'll notice that the European for this whole time frame, it never drops the trough down, Joe. It's got actually a big upper high. I mean, it's got the upper high off Nova Scotia, but it's got look at the difference here for Wednesday morning. Okay, the on the European for whatever reason actually drops the cutoff down in Utah. For God's sake. I mean, I don't know if that's right. That also looks suspect to me. But I mean, for the same time frame that the European has this, which would basically be warm and humid with scattered showers and storms from the East Coast all the way back to the plains, the GFS for this has this upper air. I mean, this would be a raging rainstorm for the middle and upper Mississippi Valley with the upper low the way it is. So there's a
Right.
big disagreement with regards to this next shortwave trough, and the models are having a very difficult time handling it.
Yeah. What does the Canadian say?
Well, let's see. I didn't even look at it today. We have the parallel. Well, the Canadian looks like the GFS. Okay. The parallel GFS looks like the GFS. So maybe it's the European that's got the problem. In my view, it's been a suspect model for quite a while. So I'm not one of the proponents of the European being almighty, and haven't been for a long time. But you could see that the parallel GFS kind of looks like the regular GFS. If just for laughs, I want to see. This was from the 12Z run, by the way. I just want to see if it had any kind of tropical system. So we'll take a look. So
Since we're doing the pick of the day model or whatever like that, try the icon as well.
oh, why not? But you can see the parallel GFS develops a couple of these systems, but keeps them. Well, it's got one that it gets close to about 70 or so west, or just about to 70 west. Oh, that's lovely. Brings it to Bermuda, and then it turns it northeast, and then it turns westward toward the Carolina coast by the end of it. I love the fantasies sometimes that these models get into. Yeah, let's take a look at the icon's only going to go out. We'll go to the earlier icon. That's the German model that goes out to 180 hours. And well, the icon's got two wrapped up storms out in the tropical Atlantic by Monday. Uh, I'll go back one run. There we go. Sorry. Let's go back to the 12Z because we can get an extra 60 hours out of it. And yeah, the icon kind of leaves them out in the tropical Atlantic. It doesn't really move them very much. It almost looks as if there's not much of a push the way the icon sets up. But look, the bottom line is the models have stuff out there. The reality has stuff out there, and reality has overperformed in a big way from what the models have indicated throughout this entire tropical storm season. So again, I would just reiterate some caution for later next week, and let's watch and see what the tropics what they do. Maybe they do nothing, which for all the way I feel about it, Joe, if nothing comes out of it, that's fine by me.
And you remember like 40 years ago, Joe, when we used to look at the during the mid and late summertime, we always say, look, this, and maybe it might just curve up toward us, maybe. And now it's just like, enough. We don't want to deal with this. It's our days of root for the storm is I would, at least from my point of view, pretty well gone now. So
Mrs. Rayo is pointing out that your audio is fine and my audio was running a little high, or both the audios were running a little high. But I just, I didn't touch the settings from yesterday, so I'm not. I don't know why it's doing what it's doing.
all right, well, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So the chairman is out working, doing all sorts of COVID runs, as he has been doing lately, and I think he's also taking some time off. So I do wish him. We both wish him safe travels and safe adventures tonight and through the weekend. So I'm going to try. He's got a couple of. We've got the Briller Jeopardy questions. If you are ready, what are you ready?
I am all set. I'm just checking to see if Mr. Briller sent me something for you for tonight. Oh yeah, we do. We do have.
Okay. Do I? I almost always go first, so you go first tonight.
In fact, Renata asked me this question because she saw it pop up on her iPad first and asked me, and I this first one is very interesting. How many different villains, Joe, did Batman face on the 1960s TV series? Um, and he says Price is Right.
Through all 3 years?
Right,
Oh God. Hmm. All right, so we have the Penguin, the Joker, the Riddler, Catwoman, right? That's
right,
four. Okay. There was King Tut,
right.
five. Um,
Don't
there,
forget Art Carney,
right. All right. So Art Carney, the Archer, was six. We had uh, uh, Roddy McDowall as Bookworm, the
Bookworm.
seventh. Malachi Throne, who played Falseface, that's
Right.
eight. We had Michael Rene, Dr. Somnambula. Remember when he was trying to help J. Pauline Spaghetti get to sleep? So that's nine. Egghead. Now of all the villains, as I have read, of all the villains, Egghead was considered to be the smartest of them all. Okay, he was exceptional.
Exceptional.
Yes.
And don't forget his sidekick, Olga.
Olga, who was played by
Oh, I don't
Ann
remember.
Baxter.
And Baxter. All right.
Right. Then of course we had Tallulah Bankhead, who played the Black Widow.
You're
So
right.
we're up
So we have
to
12.
we're up to 11.
11 or 12.
11 or 12. I'm trying
And
to
and the,
think.
and the siren.
The Siren, right? That's all right. So 13, 12 or 13.
That was the one who was on Joan Collins.
Right. Joan Collins was the or the Siren or the
Yeah.
Siren. So that's 12. Um, who else? Am I missing someone? Oh, King. Did I say King Tut already? Victor Buono,
Victor Bruno. Yeah, make that 13.
13. Mr. Freeze, 14.
There were two. There were two Mr. Freezes, weren't there?
Otto Preminger was Mr. Freeze, and
There was another guy who was
Eli Wallach was Mr. Freeze also. Otto Preminger was the original Mr. Freeze, and then later on it was Eli Wallach. You had Frank Gorshin was the Riddler, and then was changed to John Aston. So we're up to 14 or 15. I'm trying to think. Is there anybody? Well, there were a few of them that may have only shown up
I'm,
once.
I'm sorry that Scott is not here tonight because I was like dumbfounded when Renata read the answer to this
So
question.
I'll say, look, we've got 15. I'm going to add 50% to that, so I'll say 22.
22. Okay, good try. Still well below the actual Price is Right. It was 37.
Really?
Now I don't. That's why I wish he
In
was
the
here.
last season, there was a lot of new ones that only appeared once.
Well, oh, how about Shane?
Oh, Shane, right? Shane,
Shane,
Shane. That
Shane.
that was played by Cliff Robertson.
Right.
So that's another one that we missed.
Uh,
Um, Shelley Winters, Ma Barker.
Ma Barker. That's right.
Right. So there's another one we missed. So there was a bunch of them that, and like as I said, in the last season, there were a lot of new ones that didn't that they only appeared once because then the show was done after
Right.
that.
Well, we 37.
All right, well,
So maybe he can list them on the chat board tomorrow night, all 37.
Jesus.
Here's number two. This should be easy. I think if you've been keeping track here, how many 90-degree days has Central Park had so far this summer?
20, 21,
You were right, 20.
20.
20.
Okay.
And here's one, question three. The little dot that's over the letter I and the dot over the letter J, the small case letter I and J.
Right. What's that dot called?
Right.
Oh, I don't know. It's not one of those things that you're walking on a dark street and somebody comes up to you and says your money, or what's that little dot over the I and the J called? So
Here's a hint. And if you're a Monty Python fan and you know the bit, you probably will be able to give the what this is. What is the name of the cat who flies through the air and lands in a bucket of water?
I thought it was Flopsy.
No,
What is it? What was the name of the
Tittle.
cat?
Tittles.
Tittles. So it's a tittle?
It's a tittle.
It's a tittle?
Yes.
I fling her. By the
And
way, if you want,
and
go ahead.
have you ever seen a question mark superimposed by an exclamation point?
A question mark superimposed by an exclamation point. I think I
Right.
have.
You
What
know,
is
instead of putting like a question mark exclamation point, there's actually a question mark
with
with
an
an
exclamation
exclamation
point through
point
it?
over it.
Over
Yeah,
it. And what does that
and
mean? Looks like a
that,
dollar sign almost.
that's called a terabang.
A terabang. And what's
Right.
its use? What would you use it for?
Well, what do you think? What do you?
Oh, okay.
What are you a nut? Instead of question mark exclamation point, use the terabang instead of putting a question mark and an exclamation
By the
point.
way, I'm going to give 2 show recommendations. I've been meaning to do this. If you have Netflix, and you're a Monty Python fan, take a look at The Norseman, which I believe is actually produced in Norway. It's a comedy. It's very much in the flavor of Monty Python. It's about Vikings and back in the day, and it's very funny. So if you like Monty Python, I think you will enjoy it because they get political humor, and they weave in a lot of stuff that's part of our culture today into what's supposed to be like the 9th century or the 10th century, and it's hilarious when they do it, when it works, and most of the time it does. The other show, if you're a Dark Shadows fan, uh,
Oh, Dark Shadows.
yes, if you're a Dark Shadows.
Angelique.
Now, Dark Shadows for its time had a
4
cult
o'clock.
follow, a huge
4
following.
o'clock on Saturday on Channel 7
Four
weekdays.
o'clock in the weekdays. You came home from
Yeah.
school, you watched Dark Shadows. Your mother screamed at you that the show was too violent and you shouldn't be able to watch it. I get a kick out of that, considering what passes for violence these days. When you show them Dark Shadows, but my mother didn't. I would have to sneak to watch it because
Right.
she thought the show was too violent. Um, but compared to the stuff today, it's just incredibly tame. But Penny Dreadful on Netflix, if you were into Dark Shadows, Penny Dreadful really reminds me of Dark Shadows in how it could have been done had it not been the 60s and television. If Dark Shadows were being done today, it would be done the way Penny Dreadful's being done, which is uh, very good. The show reminds me of it, and if I was a Dark Shadows fan, I actually met a number of the cast members along the way um, of Dark Shadows, so it was pretty cool. Um, we had a stagehand at Channel 11 who worked that show, and he
Really?
used to tell stories about how on the break times, they would Barnabas Jonathan Frid would kind of just like take a nap in the coffin. But Penny Dreadful, watch it because just to give you a big premise. So it's the 19th century. It's the late 19th century in England, and you have Mary Shelley's Frankenstein combined with Bram Stoker's Dracula, combined with Oscar Wilde's The Portrait of Dorian Gray, combined with the story of the werewolf, combined with the story of witches' coven and devil worship, and it's all going on at the same time, and all those storylines are sort of intertwined with each other. It may sound confusing, but it actually does work. So those are 2 shows that I would put on my list if you have Netflix.
Bill Rogers says Channel 11. What's that? Boston? I, I, I'm not sure if he. I'm not sure.
WPIX TV in New York
611.
City, okay,
611.
not
I
Boston.
mean, Bill, if you want a real
Bill's
joke
Bill's
of a,
Bill's up in Vermont, so he's thinking the Boston
all
stations.
right,
No, this
all
is
right.
New York
If you
City.
if you if you really want a joke of a television station here in New York, it's most definitely it's got to be Channel 9. I mean, Channel 9.
I can't remember the last time I even watched a television show on Channel 9.
Channel 9 runs like 8 hours straight of Family Feud. They consider that an evening block, so to speak. But you and I, Joe, we came back from the day in the days back in the days. Channel 9 used to have $1 million
Million dollar movie. Yes. Now they don't even have the $1.99 movie. All right, so let's get to your questions. And Price is Right. I'm sorry, baseball rules apply here.
All right, three
Okay.
strikes and I'm out.
What is the only letter that is never silent?
The only letter that's never silent.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Uh,
my guess would be is if
I would say
it's any letter from the IRS, but
how
but
about
I'm
Q?
thinking he means the alphabet.
Q.
Q. Okay. The answer to that is actually V.
Z.
V. V. As in
V.
no.
V.
V as in Victor. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that V.
Okay. Question 2. What are the only two parts of your? Let me go back. Let me start this again. What are the only two parts of your body that never stop growing?
Um,
Now I know you're Italian, but go on.
hair and fingernails. That's the only thing I would think of.
No, two body parts.
Well,
So
aren't hair and fingernails
I
body?
wouldn't regard hair as a body part.
Oh, always growing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it would have to be. Would it be like a layer of skin, like epidermis or whatever? Or
Let me see how I can give you a hint of this. Okay.
yes.
Uh, there was one actor that was famous for this, for his. Okay. We all have one. Okay. But this one particular actor was famous for his, and that was actually it was part of his character.
Okay.
That's a broad hint, I know. He played a piano.
I'm I'm Jimmy Durante.
Jimmy Durante. So, with what body part?
The nose.
His nose. That is one. Okay. Now the
It could
other.
also have included Bob Hope.
Well, okay.
Oh,
The other one was. Well, I don't know anybody. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head that this body part would be, but your ears apparently.
and they're always growing.
Apparently so.
Wow. Listen to that. And Pinocchio. Are you listening out
Well,
there?
yeah,
Those channels,
exactly.
whatever.
Right. Um, those are the funniest Geico commercials for the ones with Pinocchio. I'm sorry they haven't made any more of those. Uh, remember, they were hilarious. What was the largest snowflake ever recorded in inches?
Oh, oh, it's like 15 inches.
That number is absolutely correct.
And
And do
and
you?
I know what I know this because it was in my children's snow book that I wrote for Simon and Schuster.
That's about
And now I
that
have to figure
long.
out. I said it. I even made a joke. I said most snowflakes when they float down and just hit the ground. This one when it came down, it made a noise. It probably splattered.
Well, I can remember instances I've seen. I think the biggest snowflake that I've ever seen was years ago with a warm front that came up. I think it was in late February or early March. I could swear the snowflake was the size of about 5 inches in diameter. It came at night. It was like at about 36, 37. They were coming down to these giant plops of snow, and they were every bit of 4 inches minimum, possibly five. So I've seen a 4 to 5 inch snowflake.
I seem to have remembered as a youngster playing like in March. Some of the kids on the block we were playing wiffle ball or whatever, and there was all of a sudden it started to snow, and I don't say 5 inches, Joe, but I could remember that there was some like silver dollar or even double the size of silver dollar
Hmm.
flakes coming down, and it must have been like 45 degrees too. I guess
Yeah,
the warmer it is, the bigger the flakes are.
yeah. But it was in. And Bill Russo says the question's rigged because your skin is an organ and it's always growing. Well, it's always shedding too. Uh, Fort Keogh, Montana, in 1887.
Okay,
So that's
that
the
sounds familiar.
that's the
That sounds
snowflake question. So, I think that wraps it up for tonight. We had a pretty good show, and we thank everybody for being here. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock at the same time, and we may have some severe weather to talk about tomorrow evening. So we'll bear that in mind, and we'll see you then. I'm out of things to say.
I'm totally out of things to say myself. So why don't we just gather everything up and we'll shoot it all out tomorrow at 7 o'clock?
Okay, works for me. Okay, uh, see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody. Thanks for being here. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock.